Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our driver ratings for the Spanish Grand Prix. Now that was an interesting one, a very fun race where no one DNF'd in the race. So you would think everyone's in for a decent score. Not so much. A lot of people with average scores. We'll get into all that and more in a little bit. Firstly, I have to say like and subscribe, of course, and also a big thank you to our members who are on the AI Racing World Champion level and above. They are Dakota and the Joyous James. If you want to join them and get shout-outs on the videos, there is a link in the description to become a member. 3 or 4 different tiers there. All the information's there. If you go for AI Racing or above, you'll get a shout out in every video we do here on the channel. But let's get into the driver ratings then. Here we go. There's Kevin Magnussen. So let's start with Kevin Magnussen. For the Haas team, interesting one for Haas. They seem to really struggle just from the off here this weekend. Kevin Magnussen more than Nico Hulkenberg. He qualified 16th, finished off in 17th. I feel like this was a pretty average performance, really, for Magnussen here. Did he get a penalty for... He got the false start penalty. Now, I don't remember seeing a replay of that, but I'll go with their word for it. Overall, though, pretty average, right down the line. 5 out of 10 from me for K-Mag. Going across to his teammate, though, Nico Hulkenberg had quite a good weekend, I thought. Qualified in 13th place, would finish the race in 11th. Very much best of the rest. Now that Alpine seemed to have reassured their place as one of the best teams who aren't very good, if that makes any sense whatsoever. You have your top 4 teams, your Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, and then, you have everyone else, and it seems to be the tradition of the last few years that Alpine, who are in a very much league of their own, where they're not the rubbish teams, they're not the good teams, they're slap bang in the middle. For a lot of this year, they haven't had that position, but they're back there now, so they can finish 9th and 10th every single race. But Nico Hulkenberg qualified 13th, finished off in 11th place. If we'd had a DNF, he'd be getting points. So overall, good result for Nico Hulkenberg. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Now, Zhou Guanyu's an interesting one, because in the last few driver ratings, I haven't been very complimentary of Zhou, especially in comparison to his teammate Valtteri Bottas. But this weekend was the weekend of Zhou Guanyu. Qualifying wasn't great, 15th in qualifying. Well, actually, no, that is good. I take that back. This was Zhou's first appearance out of Q1 all year, so I take it back. Qualifying was good for Zhou Guanyu. 15th place for him. In the end, he would finish in 13th place. This is Zhou's best race of the year, and I think goes again to something we've discussed when talking about Bottas, and in terms of getting points for lower than 10th. Because, Zhou here has finished 13th and gained no points. So he has had the same reward for every other race this year when he's not been very good. So here, where he's performed quite well, he still gets nothing in terms of championship points, but I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 because I thought he did a fantastic job. For a lot of the race, he was there, battling Hulkenberg for that 11th place. A lot of the race actually spent it in the points due to all the pit stops and stuff going on. He's one of those guys who could have benefited from a safety car at one point. If it had played out a little bit differently, I think Zhou would have been in those points. But yeah, great result there for Zhou Guanyu. Valtteri Bottas now, not as good for him. He qualified 12th, which is absolutely fantastic. Great qualifying for him. He would finish off in 16th place. I'm going to give him a... I pressed the wrong button. Oh, it's all gone wrong. I'm giving him a 6. There you go. I think that's all right there. Yuki Tsunoda had a bad weekend. Well, Racing Bills in general had a bad weekend. They turned up here off the back of Canada, where, of course, Daniel Ricciardo had one of the best results of the year in qualifying and the race. One of the best overall race week performances for them. Turned up here, lots of upgrades on the car. You'd expect really good things, and it was just a completely different team. so different from what we've seen from them for the majority of the year. Yuki Tsunoda would qualify 17th and would finish in 19th place. Real bad from Yuki, who has been consistently fantastic this year. First really bad performance for him. I'm going to give him a 3 out of 10. I'd written 4 down there, but really it's worse than a 4. I'm going to give him 3 out of 10 for that. Meanwhile, Daniel Ricciardo, still not a great result for him, but far better than what Yuki achieved. He did qualify behind him in 18th, but was able to convert that to a 15th place on the race day. Still not great, but with the car as it was, where, it wasn't in a great place, I think he did as well as he could. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. Cross to Williams now. I nearly said Aston Martin. This is Williams with Logan Sargent. He would qualify 20th. He got a penalty for impeding, and he started 19th. That was because Alexander Albon would go and start from the pit lane. Despite starting on the grid, Albon was on the back of him relatively quickly. He did seem to get ahead of Ricciardo at the start, but according to F1 Fantasy, he did no overtakes in the entire race. He would then just go right to the back of the grid, and that's where he finished, P20. I'm going to give him a 2, and that is just because he finished the race and he actually set a time in qualifying. That's the 2 points there. Alexander Albon, he qualified 19th, so, bad qualifying for him. Obviously, the Williams not going well around this circuit. They would make some changes overnight, meaning he would have to start from the pit lane. And then he finished 18th. So still, it's really bad day at the office for the Williams team there. One to forget for them so far. Really don't know what to do with him here. I'm going to give him a 4, I think, just because, not great there, is it? If we're honest, 18th places. You'd expect a lot better from Alexander Albon. Right, who is next? It is Esteban Ocon of Alpine. Like I said, Alpine really have come into their own this weekend. This is where I would have expected them to be at the start of the year. Of course, it did not go that way. They were right at the back at the start of the year, but they seem to be back on track here. Good qualifying, good race results for them. Esteban Ocon qualified 8th, finished the race in 10th, picking up 1 point. Going to give him an 8 out of 10. And then for Pierre Gasly, he had the better performance all around, really. 7th place qualifying, 9th place on the race. I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. That is where we now should expect the Alpine to be. They should be 9th and 10th in basically every race. It's going to be, really, the competition for 9th and 10th should be between Alpine and Aston. But Aston just really did not turn up this weekend, so gave it away to Alpine. Although Hülkenberg was there to keep him honest for a little bit. And as was Sergio Perez. More on Sergio Perez later on. My goodness. Lance Stroll, he would qualify 14th, finish the race in 14th. A fairly anonymous one for him, really. I don't really know what happened. He was there, I think, and he just started when he finished. 5 out of 10 for Lance Stroll. Now, Fernando Alonso is an interesting one as well. Fernando qualified 11th, but will be pushed up to 10th because of Perez's penalty. Went backwards a lot at the start of the race. He did get tapped into the first corner, and then something was wrong with the car from there as he just went backwards and backwards and backwards. After his first pit stop, that seemed to fix it, and he had some pace from there, but really it was too late. He lost too much ground over the first lap and was not really able to recover, eventually finishing 12th. What's going on with Aston at the minute? It's a really weird one because they're obviously not doing well. They're nowhere near where they were last year. I mean, in comparison to where they were this time last year, when they had all those podiums, they're nowhere near that. But they're nowhere near where they were at the end of last year, when, Aston had fallen off quite considerably throughout the year. Aston are nowhere near that point anymore. They've fallen off even more. And, we know what Fernando Alonso is like. And when the team isn't going well, he's normally fairly vocal. And, of course, he's come out and said that the results aren't good enough. But he seems quite happy and quite content, which gives me confidence that, they know what the issue is. And maybe there's a workaround there. But it's still not great results for him. I mean, I don't even know. Man, I'll give him a 6, I think. I initially gave him a 7, but I'll change it to a 6 just because there was nothing. Actually, no, maybe 7 is right, just because he did cope well with that issue at the start, whatever that was. And I thought he was going to have to retire the car, but he fought through and it eventually fixed itself. Across to McLaren now. It's a tale of two halves at McLaren. Oscar Piastri, I was actually very disappointed with the performance of Oscar Piastri. Of course, he got into Q3, but his first lap time was deleted due to track limits. And on his second lap time, he messed it up, went wide and went through the gravel. So he ended up not setting a time in Q3. He would qualify 10th, which would be promoted to 9th because of Perez's penalty. And then in the race, we all know how good Oscar Piastri can be. And realistically, looking at it, the McLaren was the fastest car on the grid today, and he finished 7th. He was never really in the conversation with the two Ferraris. He was never in conversation with the Mercedes. He was nowhere near the pace of his teammate. I would have expected here, obviously he's not as experienced as Lando Norris, but you would expect, with the pace he had underneath him and the skills that we know he has, you would expect him to be around where the Ferraris were at a minimum for this race weekend, but he really just wasn't. Still picks up decent points, but I was quite disappointed. I'm going to give him a 4. It's a shame to see, but there we go. Teammate, though, did well. Qualified on pole, would finish in P2. Very disappointed with P2, but P2 nonetheless. It seems like he's just been in a foul mood all weekend. I've just seen a clip of him just before I started recording this, where he's walking into the paddock and he can't even be bothered to scan his ID card to go through the turnstile. He just kind of pushes the turnstile out of the way and just has a moody walk through the paddock. What's going on with this man? Why is he in such a mood? But there you go. I mean, in terms of the race, he did very well. Coped well with the alternative strategy. Coped well with the tyres. In terms of where he lost this race, a lot of people pointing fingers to the start, and of course that is a factor. He was too focused on blocking Max that he just let George Russell go around the outside of both of them, and then also lost the position to Max. I mean, it's not just his fault though. I think his second pit stop was quite a bit slow there. It's about 3.6 seconds instead of 2. So he had a slow stop as well. Oh, I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 because I still think he had a fantastic job. No need for the asterisks there. He still did a fantastic job, but there was room for improvement, and he had the fastest car this weekend and didn't convert it into a win. So I can't give him a 10 out of 10 for that. Here's Carlos Sainz, though, his home race. He started 6th and finished 6th. A few little incidents along the way. He had a little tap with his teammate near the start. Also had a little falling out with Lewis Hamilton. And questioned the FIA rule book. But overall, I think a okay weekend for him. I expected better of the Ferraris coming in with all those upgrades, but they were just not on the pace. They were nowhere near the pace of Verstappen and Norris, and weren't really on the pace of the Mercedes either. Overall, I'm going to give Sainz a 6. And then for Charles Leclerc, he qualified 5th, finished 5th, was right on the back of Russell at the end of the race. One more lap and he would have had him, but that means nothing realistically. I'm going to give him a 7. He did all right with what he had. George Russell's next. What an interesting guy. Qualifies 4th. After lap 1, he's in 1st place. Didn't play the team game whatsoever. Did not help out Lewis when he was trying to defend against Lando Norris. When he was one-on-one with Verstappen, when he was one-on-one with Norris, and when he was one-on-one with Lewis, He defended in the exact same way every single time and gave away his position very easily. But overall, he finished fourth, and that's a decent result for him. Yes, that's the thing with George. I think, when we talk about levels of drivers, you've got your likes of Max and Lewis who are up there, and then you got your likes of Leclerc and Lando who are just below, and then you've got a gap. And I think you got your likes of Sainz and. I think George would probably be below Sainz. He's just not there yet. And I think the issue with George as well is I think he has maybe too many yes men around him in terms of someone like Toto Wolff, who is very shy to critique his drivers, at least publicly. Who knows what he's doing behind closed doors. So I think George struggles to learn from the mistakes he makes, which is not helping him grow and become a better driver, if that makes any sense. Overall, though, fourth is still a great result for him. I'm going to give him an 8. Oh, no, that's too kind. I think a 7 is fairer, because I think he did make some mistakes which cost him sometimes overall. His teammate, though, Lewis Hamilton, got his first podium of the year. Qualified third, finished off in third. In terms of, what could Lewis have done better? There isn't really much, really. He just managed the race really well. Went long on his second stint to have the softs at the end. Yeah, just overall did a very good job. Not the perfect start, but overall good. It's a 9 or a 10 for Lewis. I'm trying to think of a reason not to give him a 10, if I'm perfectly honest with you. But I think... yeah, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to give Lewis Hamilton a 10 out of 10. His first podium of the year, he deserves a 10. Well done, Lewis Hamilton. Oh, dear. Right, let's talk about Sergio Perez. So he qualified 8th, but that will be converted to 11th place after the penalty from Canada, where he drove the car in an unsafe manner in terms of the damage on the car. He was told to by the team, I'm not holding that against him, blah, blah, blah. From 11th place, he battled all race with 2 Alpines and a Haas. And maybe a bit of Zhou Guanyu as well. Now, I think the majority would agree that the Red Bull was not the fastest car on the track today. And you could even argue it was not the second fastest car on the track today. At a push, you could argue it wasn't the third fastest car today, but I would say the McLaren was faster, I'd say the Mercedes was faster, and then I'd say the Red Bull was third. In the third fastest car on the grid, you should not be struggling to divide Haas's and Alpines. Really, really disappointing from Sergio Perez. Now, of course, he made it into Q3, which is better than what he's done over the last few races. But overall, it's a really disappointing result. And I go back to that 2-year deal that he's been given. I'm just gobsmacked. I mean, if it was a 1-year deal, I could maybe understand. And I know it's a 1+1. But still, it makes no sense. In a world we are in, where next year it will be Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri in a McLaren, and George Russell and whoever that might be in the Mercedes, Red Bull need to have 2 strong, consistent drivers to fight against those 2. And Sergio is not it at all. Because here we have Max Verstappen fighting for his life to bring out a fantastic result, which is what he did. And Sergio's beefing with the Alpines, who've been a joke all year. It was really, really rather disappointing. I'll give him a 3. Just because it was better than Logan Sargent, but not by much. Let's go across to Max Verstappen then. Qualified P2, missed out on pole by 0.02 of a second. but would finish the race in first. Got the jump on Lando at the start of the race, but George was able to get past both of them. Got past George 2 laps later, and then didn't really look back. Was under a lot of pressure from Lando, not physically, but mentally in a way, because they were on different strategies. They weren't really sharing the same part of the track, but there was this big strategic game all the way through, but he managed it really well, and as like I've been saying throughout the entire video, didn't have the fastest car, and still won. I said this in Canada, I'll say it again here. These last 2 races have shown how good Max Verstappen is, because the Red Bull has not been the fastest car, and they've still won because of him, not because of the car. That's the Max Verstappen effect here. That's what we're seeing from a great driver in what still is a fantastic car, but last year he slept his way to the title because he didn't have to try. We are seeing what happens when Max Verstappen tries now, and how hard everyone else is going to have to work to even have a thought of beating him. Because, we're getting to a place now where the other cars are close. But realistically, they've taken too long to get close because they give Max too much of a lead. On an even playing field that will be next year, we are seeing how hard every driver is going to have to work to try and beat him, because I still don't think we've seen 100%. I think last year he was running about 40-50%. This year he's about 80 or 90% effort. Max Verstappen 100% going at it is near impossible to beat at the skill level I think he is at right now. He's getting a 10 out of 10, a fantastic performance from him to get the win today, and I'm looking forward to Austria, because Austria is one of his best tracks, it's one of Lando's best tracks, and I think the cars should be pretty even there, should be a really interesting one. Can't wait to see it. There you go, that is my driver ratings for today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know who are you rating high, who you're rating low, what do you think of Sergio Perez? I don't know, don't tell me what you think of Sergio Perez. I don't want to hate on the guy, I like Sergio Perez. When Sergio Perez first joined Red Bull, I was so happy because he was one of my favourite drivers. Like that time he had in Force India that turned into Racing Point or whatever they were at that time. I loved Sergio Perez, and that combination of Max and Checo made me so excited. But he's just not good enough to be in a top team right now. There you go. Enough Sergio Perez hate. That is the driver ratings. We'll be back next week, next Thursday. We will have the Austria preview because it's a sprint race, everybody. Sprint races are back again. So we'll have the preview on Thursday. There's sprint qualifying on the Friday. We will have coverage of the sprint race and actual qualifying on the Saturday, then coverage on the race on Sunday, and I think there's F2 and F3 as well. So loads of stuff to come on the channel, as always, so make sure you like and subscribe for that. And of course, the memberships are available. They start as little as 99p, so you can go have a look at there. If you want your name shouted out in the videos, it's AI Racing World Champion or above. I'll see you next time. Until then, though, have a good one. Goodbye.